welcome to India Tonight. I'm Shabani Kharat. Now, government data has showed that the net direct tax collection grew 16.4% to over 6.51 lakh crore rupees till July 13. The net corporate tax collection rose 22% to 2.40 lakh crore rupees. The figures released by government indicate robust growth and strong start to the fiscal year 27. The jump in tax mop-up reflects continued economic activity and improved tax compliance. It also gives government greater fiscal headroom to fund capital expenditure and welfare programs. To discuss this surge in tax and the growth, the reason for growth behind the 16.4% growth, we are now joined in by Prabhat Ranjan. He's a senior director, Next Team Mumbai, and Sharad Kohli, economist. He's joining us from Gurugram. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. Now, first question, what according to you, Mr. Kohli, is the direct reason, since you are a tax expert, what is the direct reason for that 16.4% growth? What is the main driver over there?
Good evening, Shivani, to you and the viewers and my fellow panelists. I think we have an advanced tax date which corporates have to follow, which is 15th of June. So this is also front loading because this is just the beginning of the financial year. And there are 4 dates on which a corporate is supposed to pay the advance tax. So I think the first date hasn't been bad. And this is all a result of India's economy's resilience, despite the tensions in Iran, because it was being envisaged that probably this quarter might be quite bad. But the corporate results, if you've seen, which are going into the stock exchanges as well, they are not coming out to be all that bad, which means Indian economy's resilience is there. And, our economy is made out of a consumption story. Our growth is 60% dependent upon consumption. The economy comprises of consumption. I think the consumption, the big Indian middle class has gone ahead and bought things which otherwise was being envisaged that probably they will not buy, but the consumption has been very good, which has led to uprise in the corporate profits. And hence the advanced tax first installment, shall I say, for FY27 has come out to be very, very good, exceptionally good. And this is also, corroborated by the fact, Shivani, that the GST collections for the month of June itself, they turned out to be 1,95,000. So which means that, war or no war, the Indian growth story, the Indian consumption story, shall I say, remains very much intact.
Consumption and growth story remains very much intact. That's the word coming in from Mr. Kohli. But Prabhat Ranjan, over to you. How much of this increase is due to, stricter tax enforcements and AI auditing?
Yeah, thanks, Shivani, for taking up this important question. Maybe I would like to at least point out some of the important aspects. The growth journey that we have been witnessing so far, on which India is progressing. I think the target that we have of 5 trillion economy by 2025, there are certainly some disruptions. Despite that, the estimation is to land at $4.15 trillion. So we have achieved almost 4/5 of the total target, and we are strongly on the path. Now, if you look at the collections, the way it has grown, probably I would like to highlight that not only the corporate tax, which has grew by approximately 22%, even the non-corporate tax that has grew up by 12%. Despite the refund of approximately 1.22 lakh crores, this clearly shows that we have a strong generation of the corporate profitability, income generation, and there is a significant financial market growth as well. So amalgam of everything, including the infrastructural growth which India is witnessing, therefore we are able to witness this kind of a strong growth, and overall we are on the momentum to achieve the targets.
Quickly over to you again. So will this high tax mob lead up to any corporate tax relief in the year to come? Because the businesses have faced a very tough year, and also, with the delayed and pretty much dry spells across many parts of the country. So it's going to impact the corporates in this year.
Wishful thinking, I would say, Shivani. I really don't think that's going to be done anytime soon. I would like to point out another reason, Shivani, here for the surge in the collections, which is, when the new financial year starts from April, especially now I'm talking of the personal tax collections, because this is also the tax filing season. So technically, the tax filing season starts from April 1, although it really picks up after 15th of May. So one of the reasons why when people deposit their residual tax as well, when you file your return, 31st July is the cutoff date. So a lot of people go on to file there. It's called the self-assessment tax, the balance of tax which remains to be paid along with the return. So that is also, Shivani, one of the reasons why we are seeing the surge in this particular quarter. In fact, you'll witness the same trend in the next quarter, because July is the month where most of the self-assessment tax is paid. This, however, this only applies to personal tax. What I'm saying doesn't apply to corporate tax, because corporate tax filing season deadlines are beyond the personal tax reasons. So I think that is the reason. But coming back to your question, Shivani, that's very wishful thinking. If what you said comes out to be true, you would have the stock market going for a song tomorrow. But unfortunately, I really don't think that's going to be the case anytime soon at this point of time.
Absolutely. Over to you. Final question, Prabhat. Ranjan, how does this growth, in fact, help us understand impact, the government's fiscal deficit reduction goals?
So, Shivani, as I mentioned, the real GDP that is estimated to grow by 7.7% approximately in financial year 2026. And the economic surveys has assessed India's medium-term potential growth at approximately 7%. So the IMF, International Monetary Fund's, the latest projection of around 6.4% growth for the current year still places India among the fastest growing major economies, and that has been supported by multiple studies which is there. So, however, there has been certain disruptions which is impacting our fiscal, deficits, etc., including the crude oil pricing, etc., which has been almost on the radar for every of the Indian to see. Roughly around, we are somewhere lagging around $90 per barrel for 2026, which is the estimated average oil price. So I think amalgam of everything will have a substantial, impact on the Indian economy. But looking at the substantial domestic demand and policy that buffers, it is important to understand that the Indian economy will still have a strong potential ahead, and the fiscal deficit should be under the control as estimated.
Thank you, Mr. Ranjan, and thank you, Mr. Kohli, for joining us today on India Tonight on ET Now.
Thank you so much, Shivani. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, moving on, US markets opened higher after June inflation came in lower than expected. The S&P 500 gained 0.3%, while the Nasdaq Composite advanced 0.6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average edged up 0.2%. Chip stocks rebounded from the previous session's sell-off, lending support to equities. However, the upside was limited as the U.S. crude climbed above $80 a barrel. IBM shares plunged 24, weighing in on the market sentiment. My colleague Darshita is here with more details.
Right. IBM shares plunged in trade today after the company released its shareholders letter, where both revenue and the earnings missed the street expectations. So what is exactly which went wrong? So basically, IBM reported its Q2 revenue of around $17.2 billion, which was below the consensus estimates, while the adjusted EPS also came in lower than expected, which disappointed the investors. Now, the biggest drag came from the infrastructure business, where the revenue declined due to the weaker than expected demand from the Z17 mainframe cycle. Now, that weakness also impacted the company's transaction processing software business. Although the broader software segment continued to grow, but it wasn't enough to offset the infrastructure slowdown. Meanwhile, the consulting business remained largely flat. And something which management also said was, according to IBM, the final weeks of June, many enterprise clients unexpectedly shifted their IT budgets. So instead of spending it on software and mainframe upgrades, customers accelerated purchases of servers, storages, and memory hardware, anticipating possible price increase amid the supply constraint. And management has also admitted to execution issues, where saying several large deals failed to close within the quarter as planned before, hurting affecting the overall revenue and the growth. So while the IBM's long-term AI and software strategy remains intact, this quarter exposed to how shifting enterprises spending priorities and the delayed deal closures can quickly impact the financial performance, and that is what has actually happened in IBM, and hence the shares plunged.
Help us understand why, what will be the impact of, this IBM plunge on the larger IT sector?
Right, we've already seen that as the IT, any international movement in IT has also impacted the Nifty IT. Now with this, the Infosys ADR and the Wipro ADR, which are the Indian ADRs listed in international markets, have also seen the dip because of the dip seen in the IBM, and hence we can, the impact can also be seen tomorrow on Nifty IT as the spending structure, the spending issues which are already being seen and highlighted by IBM, that the spending is being shifting to the servers and softwares and the chip stocks, and that is what can also impact the Nifty IT tomorrow, and that has to be seen in the trade tomorrow, and this is what is expected.
Thank you so much for joining us today on and giving us an insight on this. Now, U.S. inflation cooled more than expected in June, strengthening expectations that price pressures are easing. Headline CPI fell off 0.4% month-on-month against expectations of a 0.1% increase, while core inflation rose 2.6% year-on-year, below the 2.8% estimate. Core CPI was also unchanged on a monthly basis compared with the forecast of 0.2% rise. Despite the softer inflation print, Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Walsh struck a cautious note, saying the central bank has no tolerance for persistently high inflation, signaling that policymakers will continue to monitor price trends before making any decision on interest rates. Now, moving on, in a significant legal setback for Byju's founder, Byju Ravindran, the Singapore High Court has overturned an earlier stay on his 6-month jail sentence in a civil contempt case. Ravindran was sentenced to a 6 month in prison by Singapore court in May. While the sentence was stayed in June, the High Court has now set aside the relief, reviving the prison term. My colleague Anurag Joshi gets us more details on this.
The Singapore High Court has overturned the stay on Byju Ravindran's jail term. The High Court set aside the stay to Byju Ravindran in a civil contempt matter. In May, a Singapore court had sentenced Ravindran to a 6-month prison term. The Singapore High Court in June stayed that sentence against Ravindran in a civil contempt case. Ravindran is challenging the High Court ruling in the Singapore Appeals Court. The contempt case is from a disputed disclosure obligation regarding documents in an ongoing arbitration proceeding. The matter is linked to the arbitration award of $235 million in the performance guarantee enforced by a QIA unit. Qatar Investment Authority is the Gulf nation's sovereign wealth fund, and Ravindran had earlier offered a guarantee on the credit facility given by Qatar Holdings LLC, which is the unit of QIA. In September 2022, Qatar Holdings lent $150 million to Byju's investment PTE, which is the Singapore domiciled investment vehicle controlled by Ravindran. In July 2025, Qatar Holding secured a $235 million SIAC arbitration award for Qatar Holding, and Qatar Holding is seeking repayment of default dues totaling $235 million.
Now, the biggest talking point on Wall Street this evening is IBM, with its share plunging as much as 24% in early trade after the tech giant reported weaker than expected preliminary earnings for the second quarter. Moreover, the company issued a stark warning that AI spending boom is beginning to squeeze global enterprise software budgets, raising fresh concerns about the sector's growth and outlook. Joining with me today is Rajiv Agarwal, Managing Partner at Doordarshi India Fund. He's joining us from New York. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for joining us today on ET Now. Now, help us, what will be the help us understand what will be the impact of this IBM plunge on the broader IT sector, both in India and globally.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Good morning and good evening to you. it's a very interesting setup we have in the whole AI space, where because the technology is evolving so fast, you have some companies that are spending a lot of money. Everybody is trying to figure out how to use it best, and yet the efficiency of AI is still in question. And this warning from IBM, who is obviously an insider of the industry, tells us that clearly there are different views in this fast evolving environment. I do think that from how it will impact the AI companies as well as IT services companies remains to be seen. My original hypothesis was that ultimately AI would be useful in its applications, but right now we are not seeing a big lift. So it remains to be seen whether that will come or this will become more of a bubble.
Did it come to you as a surprise? And is IBM faltering isolated, or is it, like a warning sign for the entire enterprise tech?
I think it is, frankly, IBM is a fringe player in AI. And so what I feel is there are two divides that are happening in the IT industry. One are the big AI players, and then the other one are the enterprise players. AI players keep talking about how good AI is, and enterprise players are still trying to figure out where the benefits of AI is, right? And so what you are noticing is the divide where one set of players talk about only the good things about AI, while the enterprise players, be it the IT services players or IBM or Accenture or what you may have, I think they are saying, listen, where is the efficiency? Why are we spending so much money? And to me, unless the efficiency comes, you will once again see IT services and enterprises once again gain ascendancy. And that is something that we still have to see and evolve. If I look at my own use, I do find, for example, and I will give you a very interesting example I recently had of AI. One of the stocks had fallen or gained a lot, and I was trying to figure out from AI what happened. And the answer it gave me was actually a wrong answer. And it gave me with so much of confidence that I initially believed that answer until I did a lot more work and found that the answer was wrong. So clearly, AI still has a lot of work to do to make it reliable.
So you're saying that, this entire AI boom has clear winners and losers. Help us understand, our investors seeing this?
Yeah, I think investors are themselves trying to make a lot of sense of what is happening in the industry. Clearly, initially, there was a lot of momentum with the AI players, the semiconductor players. And in the last few weeks, we have seen, especially on the semiconductor side, some of that shine come off. And frankly, investors are really trying to understand where the businesses are going, because as the businesses do, so will the investments, and so will the investors. So I do believe that this is a time where we need to be watchful of the data and really take a view much more dependent on how the evolution of this technology is, rather than have a very predefined opinion which you might want to just express through your investments.
Right, Mr. Agarwal, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now and sharing your inputs on the IBM plunge. Well, moving on, now RBI has unveiled draft norms on acquisition and voting rights in banks. Central Bank aims to simplify regulatory framework governing acquisitions of major stakes in banks by mutual funds, insurers and pension funds. Anurag Joshi gets us more details on this.
The Reserve Bank of India has unveiled draft norms on acquisition and voting rights in banks by mutual funds, pension funds and insurance companies. The RBI is to grant a one-time approval for repeat purchase of major stake in banks by mutual funds, insurers and pension funds. The RBI says that the norms are to ease the approvals for repeat purchases, and asset management companies had sought regulation on the repeat purchases of stake in lenders. Since November 2025, investors seeking initial acquisition of a major stake in the banks will need RBI approval, and if the stake after initial acquisition falls below 5%, prior RBI clearance is needed for the repeat purchase. the RBI may grant such approval for acquisition of a major stake up to 10%. A qualifying person who secures such approvals but doesn't hold a major shareholding will be called qualifying person with one-time approval. The RBI has sought public comments on the draft norms by August 4.
Thanks, Anurag, for that. Now, prominent online gaming companies, including Gamescraft Technology and Jungly Games, have moved to the Supreme Court seeking a review of its landmark judgment that upheld 28% GST levy on online games involving monetary stakes. The review petitions, in fact, filed today, challenged the Supreme Court's May 27 judgment, which had upheld the constitutional validity of the tax and rejected challenges to retrospective GST demands reportedly worth over 1.5 lakh crore. My colleague Kuldeep filed a report earlier today on this.
Well, the online gaming companies have moved the Supreme Court seeking review of its May 27th judgment, wherein the apex court had upheld 28% retrospective GST levy on all online gaming companies. The gaming companies such as Jungly Games India Private Limited and Sachiko Gaming Private Limited have filed a review petition in the apex court seeking the review of apex court's judgment of May 27th. We must tell the viewers here that following the apex court judgment of upholding retrospective levy of GST at 28% on online gaming, the tax arrears on gaming companies are worth over rupees 1.5 lakh crore, and as per many tax experts, this area seems to be quite difficult for gaming companies to pay, because a lot of gaming companies have shut down their operations, and this would be a difficult task for them to pay this area. Now, while rejecting the gaming company's petition on May 27th, the apex court had held that the GST is payable on the full face value of bets or entry amounts and not merely on platform fees or gross gaming revenue. The apex court had also accepted the centre's argument that the 2023 GST amendments only clarified the existing legal position and did not introduce a fresh levy, thereby validating retrospective tax demands. Now, this review petition has been filed before the apex court. However, the date of hearing has not been decided yet. In fact, today only this review petition has been filed, and we must tell the viewers here that the bench which had passed the original judgment on May 27th, the same bench would hear this review petition and it would be heard at the chamber of the bench.
Now, India is expanding its global footprint in textiles. Union Textiles Minister Giriraj Singh says the country is now competing with the world with the exports from over 550 districts and more than 25 Indian brands developed for global markets. Let's listen in.
मैंने आपसे बताया कि देश में पहली बार हैंडलूम, हैंडीक्राफ्ट और टेक्सटाइल, गारमेंट, सारे चीज, सिल्क, सब चीज मिला करके 550 लोगों ने डिस्ट्रिक्ट से एक्सपोर्ट हुआ. उसके अमाउंट छोटे बड़े हैं. ये सबसे बड़ी खासियत है. आप जब इंडिविजुअल लेंगे, ऐसे छोटे छोटे एंटरप्रेन्योर मिलेंगे. आप बड़े बड़े ब्रांड तो हैं ही, और आज मुझे खुशी है इंडिया ब्रांड से 25 से ऊपर ब्रांड शुरू किया है दुनिया में अपनी मार्केटिंग. ये भी भारत के लिए बड़ी बात है. उनको मेरा संदेश है, उनके साथ मेरी मीटिंग भी है, जो यहाँ इस बार केवल बायर ही नहीं आ रहे हैं बल्कि इन्वेस्टर भी आ रहे हैं. और खुशी इस बात की है, जो स्टिचिंग मशीन पहले हमारे यहाँ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग नहीं था, अब एक ताइवान की कंपनी से कैमेटूर में अब शुरुआत हो चुका है. जुक्की का भी काम अब होने वाला है. तो इन्वेस्टर भी आ रहे हैं, और इस बार का भारत टैक्स की खासियत वही. सूरत केवल सिंथेटिक्स कपड़ों में, साड़ियों में था. आज अभी एक ब्रांड ने वो गारमेंट में भी आया है. तब ये सूरत, इचलकरंजी, पानीपत, लुधियाना, पहले टेक्सटाइल में केवल 1-2 शहरों का नाम होता था. अब हम लोग सारे नियम कानून को इतना ईज ऑफ डूइंग किया है, इससे इनको बहुत सहूलियत हो रही है। हम लोगों ने कॉटन इंपोर्ट की ड्यूटी अक्टूबर तक अभी खत्म किया है।
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Tonight. Goodbye from me, Shibani Gharat, and the entire team of ET Now.